For a decade, the story of Jenny and Sumit has been a relentless tug of war, a battle fought on two fronts, a war for love and a war for acceptance. But one front, one insurmountable obstacle, has always threatened to destroy everything they've built. It was a problem rooted in biology, in culture, and in time itself. Sumit's family, specifically his mother Sadhna, had one demand, an ultimatum that echoed through every tense family meeting, every tearful phone call, and every painful confrontation: a grandchild, a biological heir to carry on the Singh family name. It was the one thing Jenny, a woman in her 60s, could never give him. Or so we thought. We all watched Sadhna's face contort with rage, her voice rising as she screamed about the age gap, about the shame, about the biological dead end she saw in their marriage. This was the one problem they could never solve, the one wall they could never break down, until now, because an insider has leaked their shocking and controversial plan to start a family, a plan so desperate, so audacious, it proves they will do absolutely anything to win his parents back. And their solution is a bombshell that will change everything. This isn't just another chapter in their story. This is the explosive final act they've been secretly planning. And if you want to be the first to know how this high-stakes gamble plays out, you need to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel right now. We are following this story closer than anyone, and you do not want to miss the fallout when the secret plan finally goes public. Now, to truly understand the sheer desperation behind the secret plot, we have to go back. We have to revisit the years of agony and understand that this issue of children was never just a casual preference. It was the absolute non-negotiable deal-breaker for Sumit's parents. This was the unbreakable wall. For Sadhna and Anil, a marriage isn't just a union of two people. It's a contract for the continuation of a lineage. It is a sacred duty, and in their eyes, Jenny was not just an older woman. She was a locked door, the end of their family line. Every argument, every bitter tear shed by his mother circled back to this one agonizing point. Remember the astrologer? That wasn't just a casual consultation for the cameras. In their culture, the words of an astrologer can be as binding as law, a map of destiny that one is foolish to ignore. Let's revisit that scene. The air in that room was thick with dread. Jenny and Sumit sat there, hopeful, desperate for a sliver of cosmic permission. But the astrologer, with a grim finality, laid out the cold, hard truth. He spoke of incompatibility, of societal discord, but the unspoken verdict, the one that hung in the air like a death sentence for their future, was the impossibility of procreation. He confirmed Sadhna's deepest fears, that this union would be barren. For Sumit's parents, this wasn't an opinion, it was a divine warning. It was the universe itself telling them that this marriage was a mistake, a path leading to a genetic cul-de-sac. Think about the family meetings, those excruciating sessions of emotional warfare. They were never about whether Jenny was a nice person or whether Sumit was happy. The subtext was always and only about legacy, procreation, the continuation of the Singh name. We saw them time and time again, sitting in that living room, a silent battlefield where Jenny was the foreign invader. Anil, the father, would speak in calm, measured tones, but his words were daggers. He spoke of his duty as a father, of the expectations of their community, of the empty space in their family where a grandchild should be. He framed it as a matter of honor, of fulfilling a multi-generational promise. Sadhna, on the other hand, was the emotional artillery. Her pleas would turn to threats, her tears to accusations. She would lament her fate, crying about what the neighbors would say, how she would face her friends with a son married to a woman older than herself, with no hope for a grandchild to bounce on her knee. She painted a picture of a lonely, desolate future, a family tree with a withered branch, all because of Sumit's choice. They weaponized tradition. They weaponized public opinion. They weaponized their own parental love, making it conditional upon Sumit's ability to produce an heir. And Sumit was trapped in the middle, a man being torn apart by his loyalty to the woman he loved and his deep-seated, culturally ingrained duty to his parents. He tried to reason with them, to explain that his happiness was what mattered, but to them, his individual happiness was secondary to his filial duty. He was not just Sumit the man, he was Sumit the son, the carrier of their bloodline. This pressure was relentless. It wasn't a single conversation, it was a daily reality, a constant grinding weight on their relationship. Every holiday, every family gathering was a painful reminder of what was missing. The presence of nieces and nephews, the talk of other people's grandchildren, all of it served as a passive-aggressive assault on their marriage. Jenny in these situations was rendered invisible, a ghost at the feast. She was the American woman who had stolen their son and, in doing so, stolen their future. The no children issue was the bedrock of their disapproval. It was the legitimate reason they could give to the world, the justification for their cruelty. It allowed them to frame their prejudice against the age gap and cultural differences as a noble concern for family legacy. It was their checkmate move in a cruel, emotional game of chess. They believed with absolute certainty that this one single issue would eventually be the thing that would break Sumit. That eventually the desire for a child of his own and the constant, unending pressure from his family would force him to leave Jenny and marry a younger Indian woman who could fulfill her duty. They built the wall high and thick, convinced it was impenetrable. They truly believed they had presented Jenny and Sumit with an unsolvable problem, a problem that would, in time, destroy their relationship from the inside out. They just never imagined that Jenny and Sumit would find a stick of dynamite. And that brings us to the bombshell, the secret plan that has been whispered about in the deepest corners of the 90-Day Fiance fan forums, a theory pieced together from insider whispers and off-camera clues. The plan is as brilliant as it is reckless. They know they can't conceive a child naturally. Jenny's age makes that a biological impossibility. Adoption was floated on the show, but it was quickly dismissed. Why? Because for Sadhna, an adopted child wouldn't solve the core problem. She doesn't just want a grandchild, she wants a Singh. She wants Sumit's blood, his DNA, a direct continuation of their family line. An adopted child, in her traditional view, would be a stranger, not a true heir. So adoption was off the table. But there is another way, a modern solution to an ancient problem, a method that is legally complex and morally divisive, but one that ticks the one box that matters to Sadhna: biology. The leaked plan, the desperate gambit they are secretly preparing to launch, is surrogacy. Let that sink in. They plan to hire a surrogate in India to carry a baby conceived with Sumit's sperm and a donor egg, a biological grandchild. A baby that is by blood, a Singh. This is their loophole, their ace in the hole. It's a plan that bypasses Jenny's age, sidesteps the adoption issue, and delivers to Sadhna the one thing she has always demanded. On the surface, it seems like a genius move, a way to finally give everyone what they want. Sumit gets to keep his wife and appease his parents. Jenny gets to secure her position in the family, and Sadhna gets the grandchild she has been screaming for. It seems perfect. But when you peel back the layers, you see that this isn't a heartwarming journey to parenthood. This is a cold, calculated act of emotional blackmail. And the first clue that this is more than just a fan theory lies in the most practical of all things: money. Surrogacy is incredibly expensive. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. There are agency fees, legal costs, medical bills for the surrogate, compensation, and the cost of the in vitro fertilization process itself. This is not something a couple living a modest life in India can just decide to do on a whim. Sumit's job at a call center and whatever savings Jenny brought from America would barely scratch the surface. So where would the money come from? This is the linchpin of the entire theory. Fans and insiders believe they are secretly filming for a new season or a brand new spin-off of 90 Day Fiance. Think about it. They've been relatively quiet on social media lately. Their posts are more curated, less spontaneous. This is often a sign that a couple is under an NDA with TLC and are currently in production. A new show, perhaps with a title like 90 Day The Final Heir or 90 Day Desperate Measures, would provide them with the perfect influx of cash. The TLC paycheck wouldn't just be for living expenses anymore. It would be the seed money for their surrogacy fund. They are literally turning their family drama into a commodity to finance the solution to that very drama. This theory suggests that their entire next chapter on television will be centered around this high-stakes, controversial journey. TLC, after all, knows that a Jenny and Sumit baby storyline is television gold. It's the one thing viewers have been speculating about for years. The network would happily fund their lives, and by extension, their surrogacy journey, in exchange for filming every agonizing, dramatic moment. The financial aspect isn't just about paying for the procedure, it's about leveraging their reality TV fame in the most direct way possible. They are using the platform that exposed their problem to the world as the very tool to pay for its solution. It's a bizarre, meta-narrative where their on-screen struggle fuels the off-screen plan, which will then become the on-screen storyline. The money trail, from the TLC production budget straight to a surrogacy clinic in India, is the most compelling piece of evidence that this is not just a fantasy, but a well-thought-out, albeit desperate, financial plan. But money is only the means to an end. The true dark heart of this plan lies in its motivation. This isn't about them wanting a baby. This is not a story of two people yearning to be parents. If Jenny, at her age, truly wanted the experience of raising a child, they would have more seriously considered adoption. This is a desperate, final attempt to win over his parents. It is a strategic move in a long and painful war. The baby is not the prize. The baby is the weapon. Think about the psychology at play here. For years, Sumit has been trying to broker a peace treaty between his wife and his parents, and for years, he has failed. He has been forced to choose, and it has caused him immeasurable pain. This plan in his mind is the ultimate solution. It's a way to stop the war, to merge his two worlds. He believes that if he can walk into his parents' house, with Jenny by his side, and place a swaddled, biological grandchild into Sadhna's arms, the fight will be over. He imagines her tears of rage will be replaced by tears of joy. He believes that the sight of her own flesh and blood, a continuation of the Sing line, will melt her heart and erase all the years of bitterness. He thinks this grand gesture will be so powerful that she will have no choice but to finally accept Jenny, to welcome her into the family as the woman who, against all odds, helped provide her with the heir she so desperately craved. This is emotional blackmail of the highest order. The baby becomes a living, breathing peace offering, a teeny innocent pawn in a game of familial power dynamics. They are not saying, "Matata, please accept us." They are saying, "We have produced what you demanded. Now you must accept us. You have no other choice." And for Jenny, the motivation is even more tragic. She has endured a decade of humiliation. She has been called old. She has been shamed. She has been ostracized. She has lived as a pariah in her husband's family. This plan is her final, desperate bid for legitimacy. She knows she will never be the young Indian daughter-in-law they wanted. But she can become something else, the grandmother of the heir. She believes that by facilitating the birth of Sumit's child, she can finally earn her place. It's a heartbreaking position to be in. Instead of being valued for who she is, as Sumit's wife, she feels she has to purchase her acceptance. She has to provide a product, a grandchild, in order to be deemed worthy. This isn't the dream of motherhood. This is a survival tactic. It's a calculated risk to secure her future with Sumit and to finally end the relentless emotional assault from his family. She's willing to go through the emotional and logistical nightmare of surrogacy, not for the joy of raising a child in her golden years, but for the hope of a quiet life, free from the constant threat of her marriage being torn apart by her in-laws. They are both so deep in this conflict, so worn down by the years of fighting, that they see this extreme, unnatural solution as their only path to peace. They've convinced themselves that a baby, born of science and desperation, will be the magical key that unlocks the door to family harmony. They see it as a beautiful, strategic masterstroke, but they are catastrophically wrong. They are not building a bridge to his family, they are lighting a fuse on a bomb that will destroy them both. This plan, which they see as their salvation, is actually doomed to fail in the most spectacular and heartbreaking way imaginable. They are fundamentally misreading the character of the one person they are trying to appease, Sadhna. They operate under the naive assumption that a biological grandchild is a simple, transactional demand. Provide the product, and acceptance will be granted. But Sadhna's objections were never just about the lack of a baby. The baby was a symptom, a socially acceptable excuse to mask her real, deeper-seated issues with Jenny. The age gap, the cultural differences, the perceived shame she brought upon their family. Handing her a baby born from a surrogate will not solve these underlying problems. It will inflame them. Sadhna will never see a child born from a surrogate, using an anonymous donor's egg as a real family. In her deeply traditional mindset, a child is born from the union of a husband and a wife. The process of surrogacy, with its clinical procedures, third-party donors, and hired wombs, will seem alien and unnatural to her. She will see it as a trick, a loophole. She will see it as Jenny buying her way into the family using Western money and science to circumvent nature and tradition. Instead of being grateful, she will be horrified. She will likely claim the child is not a true Sing, that it is tainted by the unnatural process of its creation. She could argue that because the egg is from a donor, the child is not Jenny's in any way, but also not fully a part of their family, as it lacks a maternal bloodline she recognizes. The very thing they think will be their triumph will be framed by Sadhna as their ultimate deceit, but it gets so much worse. The most catastrophic potential outcome, the one that would create a legal and emotional nightmare of epic proportions, is that Sadhna could try to take the child. Let's imagine the scenario. Jenny and Sumit present the baby, and instead of acceptance, Sadhna sees an opportunity. She sees a biological Singh grandchild, her son's flesh and blood, being raised by a woman she considers to be an illegitimate elderly grandmother figure, not a mother. She will argue that Jenny, a woman nearing 70, is too old to be a mother. She will claim Jenny lacks the stamina, the health, and the longevity to raise a child to adulthood. She will paint Jenny as a selfish, unnatural parent who is putting her own desires ahead of the well-being of the child. And then she will make her move. She could launch a legal battle for custody. In a legal system that can be complex and often favors traditional family structures, Sadhna and Anil could present themselves as the stable, age-appropriate, and culturally proper guardians for the child. They would argue that they can provide the child with a real Indian upbringing, surrounded by the right values, something they would claim Jenny could never do. They would turn Jenny's age, the very issue that started this whole mess, into a legal weapon to take the baby away from her. This wouldn't be a simple family squabble. This would be a brutal public custody war, a war that would tear Sumit apart. He would be forced to legally fight his own parents, to stand in a courtroom and testify against his own mother and father. The stress, the heartbreak, the public humiliation would be immense. He would be caught in an impossible emotional vice, forced to choose between the wife he loves and the child he helped create, and the parents who are claiming to act in that child's best interest. It would be a no-win scenario. If he sides with Jenny, he loses his family forever in the most acrimonious way possible. If he shows even a moment of weakness or loyalty towards his parents, he betrays Jenny and risks losing her and his child. This single act, designed to bring the family together, would instead create a chasm so deep and so toxic that it could never be bridged. It would be the ultimate backfire. They are gambling everything on a single flawed premise, that Sadhna's love for a grandchild will outweigh her prejudice against Jenny. And it is a losing bet. This entire plan is built on a foundation of desperation, not love. It's a strategic maneuver, and Sadhna will see it as such. The child, this innocent life brought into the world to solve a problem, will become the new battlefield. Every decision about the child's upbringing, from what they eat, to the language they speak, to the school they attend, will become a proxy war between Jenny and Sadhna. Sadhna will see it as her right, as the grandmother of the only Singh heir, to have control. She will overstep boundaries. She will criticize Jenny's every move. She will use the child as a pawn to manipulate Sumit. Jenny, who already feels like an outsider, will be relegated to the role of an elderly caregiver, not a mother, in her own home. The joy and peace they hope this baby will bring will be replaced by a constant, simmering state of anxiety and conflict. The presence of the child won't heal the family. It will simply give them a new and more devastating reason to fight. This isn't a solution. It's an escalation. It's pouring gasoline on a fire that has been smoldering for a decade. The very thing they believe will save their marriage will be the catalyst for its complete and utter destruction. They are not planning a family. They are orchestrating a tragedy. This isn't just a bad idea. It is the single most reckless and self-destructive decision of their entire lives. They are gambling their financial stability, their emotional sanity, and their future happiness on a plan that is almost guaranteed to backfire in the most spectacular way. The money they earn from TLC, the money that is supposed to be for their future, their security, will be poured into a surrogacy process that will likely end in heartbreak. They will be financially drained, left with nothing but legal bills and emotional scars. Sumit, the man who has already sacrificed so much for his love, will be pushed to a breaking point from which he may never recover. The conflict with his parents, which is already a heavy burden, will become an unbearable, soul-crushing war. And Jenny, who traveled across the world for a peaceful life with the man she loves, will find herself in her senior years trapped in a nightmare of her own making. She will not be a celebrated mother, but a vilified elder, fighting for the right to raise a child in a family and a culture that will never fully accept her. This plan will not bring the family together. It will be the very thing that shatters them into a million pieces. It will be the final tragic chapter that destroys Sumit and Jenny for good. The quest for an heir will not secure their legacy. It will only ensure their ruin. They are standing at the edge of a cliff, believing they have found a way to fly, when in reality, they are about to jump into the abyss, and the whole world will be watching. thanks to the very cameras they are counting on to fund their own demise. The tragic flaw in their thinking is a misunderstanding of human nature, specifically the nature of a woman like Sadhna Singh. They see her demand for a grandchild as a simple checkbox to be ticked. They don't understand that for her, the how is just as important as the what. A grandchild born to a young, subservient Indian daughter-in-law whom Sadhna chose herself would be a symbol of victory, of continuity, of her own success as a matriarch. It would be a baby she could parade before her friends and community, a testament to her family's strength and adherence to tradition. A baby born via a hired womb and a foreign anonymous egg, facilitated by the very American woman she despises, is not a victory. It is a public monument to her failure. It is an admission to the entire world that her son has so thoroughly rejected her wishes that he had to resort to a bizarre, modern, and in her eyes, shameful procedure to produce an heir. It doesn't erase the shame of Jenny's age. It highlights it in fluorescent, blinking lights. Every time a neighbor would ask, "Who is the mother?" the truth would have to come out. It would be a story of clinics and doctors and contracts, not a story of love and family and natural blessings. For a woman so obsessed with Sharam and Izzat, with shame and honor, this is a living nightmare. She wouldn't see a beautiful baby. She would see a walking, crying symbol of her son's defiance and her own powerlessness. The baby would be a constant public reminder that Jenny won, that Jenny, the old American, found a way to outmaneuver her, to use money and technology to get what she wanted. And a woman like Sadhna does not react to defeat with grace and acceptance. She reacts with vengeance. She will not embrace this child as a peace offering. She will see this child as stolen goods, a biological inheritance of the Singh family that is currently in the hands of an illegitimate party. And she will do everything in her power to reclaim what she believes is rightfully hers. And this brings us to the most chilling aspect of this entire affair, a perspective that Jenny and Sumit, in their desperate haze, seem to have completely ignored. The perspective of the child. This isn't a hypothetical pawn in their game. This is a human being who will be born into a war zone. This child's life will not begin with lullabies and loving coos from a united family. It will begin with the opening salvos of a fresh, brutal war. Imagine this child's life. Their home will be a place of tension, of whispered arguments between their father and grandmother. Family gatherings will not be joyous occasions. They will be fraught with passive-aggressive comments, with Sadhna scrutinizing Jenny's every move, criticizing her parenting, whispering in Hindi to Sumit about how an American can't possibly understand how to raise a proper Indian child. The child will be pulled in two directions, taught two different sets of values, two different ways of life, by two women who fundamentally loathe each other. Jenny will try to raise the child with American sensibilities of independence and open-mindedness. Sadhna will try to instill traditional Indian values of obedience, duty, and respect for elders. A respect she will demand be directed solely towards herself. The child will be a living embodiment of the cultural clash that has defined Jenny and Sumit's entire relationship. And what about the question of identity? Who is my mother? How do they even begin to explain that? Well, your father is your father, but your mother. Well, the woman raising you, Jenny, is your grandmother's age. The egg that made you came from an anonymous woman you'll never meet. And the woman who carried you for 9 months was paid to do so and is no longer in our lives. It's a logistical and emotional minefield. Sadhna will exploit this ambiguity to its fullest. She will likely tell the child, subtly at first, and then more openly, that Jenny is not their real mother. She will position herself as the central female figure in the child's life, the true matriarch. She will create a narrative where she and Sumit are the child's true family, and Jenny is just there, an elderly caretaker, a strange anomaly. This will create a profound identity crisis for the child, who will be torn between their love for the woman who raises them day in and day out, and the poisonous whispers from a grandmother determined to delegitimize that bond. The emotional damage inflicted on a child raised in such a toxic, manipulative environment is incalculable. They are not creating a family. They are engineering a human being specifically to absorb the pain and dysfunction that they, the adults, have been unable to resolve. It is when you strip away all the justifications, an act of profound selfishness, dressed up in the language of desperation. The price of their potential peace will be paid by the emotional well-being of an innocent child. Now, let's focus on Sumit, the man in the middle. The man this is all supposed to save. This plan will not save Sumit. It will utterly and completely break him. For a decade, he has been performing a high-wire act, balancing his love for Jenny against his duty to his parents. It has already taken a tremendous toll on him. We've seen him lie, we've seen him cry, we've seen him paralyzed by indecision. Now imagine that high wire is doused in gasoline and set on fire. The arrival of a child doesn't resolve his conflict, it magnifies it by a factor of 1,000. Right now, the battle is abstract. It's about concepts of love, honor, and marriage. Once a baby is involved, the battle becomes tangible. It's about a person, his child. Every decision will force him to choose a side. When Sadhna insists on a traditional religious ceremony that Jenny is uncomfortable with, whose side does he take? When Jenny wants to plan a trip to America to see her family, but Sadhna insists the child is too young to be taken away from its real home, what does he do? When Sadhna buys the child traditional Indian clothes and throws out the American-style outfits Jenny bought, how does he mediate? He can't. Every choice will be seen as a betrayal by one of the two women. His life will become an endless series of impossible choices, each one carving another piece out of his soul. And the financial pressure will be the constant grinding engine of this misery. Let's be brutally realistic. The TLC money won't last forever. Eventually the show will end, and they will be left in India, with a modest income, trying to support a child in the 21st century. The costs of education, healthcare, and simply living will mount. This financial strain will add a layer of resentment and stress to their marriage that it has never had to endure before. The surrogacy itself will have drained their savings, leaving them with no safety net. Jenny is past retirement age. She has no earning potential. The entire financial burden will fall on Sumit. The pressure to provide, coupled with the constant emotional warfare at home, will be crushing. He will start to see the child not as a blessing, but as the source of all his new problems. And then the guilt will set in. He will see the pain in Jenny's eyes, a woman who should be enjoying a peaceful retirement but is instead embroiled in daily conflict. He will see the confusion and unhappiness in his child's face, and he will know that he is the one who orchestrated it. He will have to live with the knowledge that his desperate, ill-conceived plan to make everyone happy has, in fact, made everyone miserable, himself most of all. Sumit is not a strong man. We have seen this time and time again. He is a man who avoids conflict, who tells people what they want to hear. He does not have the emotional fortitude to withstand the storm he is about to unleash. He will collapse under the weight of it all. And what of Jenny? Her role in this tragedy is perhaps the most heartbreaking. Her dream was simple: to live out her years in peace with the man she loves. This plan is the ultimate perversion of that dream. She will not achieve the status of a respected wife and mother. In the eyes of Sumit's family and community, she will be an object of curiosity and pity, the old American woman who had to buy a baby. Her role in the child's life will be constantly undermined. She will handle the day-to-day drudgery of parenting, the sleepless nights, the diaper changes, the feeding, while Sadhna swoops in for the photo opportunities, positioning herself as the loving, legitimate grandmother. Jenny's age, which is already a weapon used against her, will become the primary ammunition in Sadhna's arsenal. Every time Jenny gets sick, every time she admits to being tired, it will be used as proof of her unfitness. See, Sumit, I told you. She is too old for this. The child needs a real mother. The child needs me. The isolation Jenny already feels will become a crushing, unbearable loneliness. She will be trapped in a foreign country, in a house filled with conflict, raising a child that her husband's family is actively trying to turn against her. Her connection to her own family in America will grow more tenuous. How can she possibly explain the nightmare her life has become? The joy she hoped to find will be replaced by a grim, daily struggle for relevance in her own home. She will have gambled the peace of her final years on a desperate bid for acceptance, only to find herself in a deeper, more painful circle of hell. She will have a child to love, yes, but that love will be tainted by the constant fear that she could lose them, that the very family she tried to join will succeed in tearing her new family apart. She will have won the battle to marry Sumit, only to lose the war for a life of peace and dignity. Let's not forget the legal and cultural realities that stack the deck against them. Surrogacy laws in India have become much more restrictive in recent years, particularly commercial surrogacy involving foreign nationals. Their plan might not even be fully legal, forcing them into a gray market that offers them zero protection. But even if they navigate the legalities of the birth, the family law system could be their undoing. In a custody dispute, the courts would be faced with a unique situation: a biological father and his parents, who are young, healthy, financially stable, and culturally aligned with the child versus a foreign national grandmother, well past the typical age of retirement. A skilled lawyer for Sadhna and Anil would have a field day. They would paint Jenny as an unstable, temporary figure in the child's life, someone whose health and longevity are a constant question mark. They would argue that the child's welfare and best interests are served by being raised in a traditional Indian home by their real family. They could even argue that Sumit is under Jenny's undue influence, a classic legal tactic. It is not an exaggeration to say that Jenny could realistically lose a custody battle. She could be legally relegated to a visitor in her own child's life, forced to watch from the sidelines as Sadhna raises the baby she so desperately wanted to bring peace. So when we put all the pieces together, the picture is not one of a clever solution, but of a slow-motion train wreck. It's a story of two people so damaged by a decade of conflict that they can no longer think rationally. They are like prisoners who have been in a dark cell for so long that they mistake a lit match for the sun. This plan, this baby, is their lit match. They think it will light their way to a brighter future, but all it will do is ignite the fumes of resentment, tradition, and prejudice that have been collecting around them for years, causing an explosion that will consume them all. The money from the show will disappear. The public's attention will move on, and they will be left in the wreckage. Sumit, a broken man, alienated from his parents, his marriage in shambles, fighting for his own child. Jenny, an elderly, heartbroken woman, alone in a country that was never truly her home, her dream of love having curdled into a nightmare of loss. And the child, the innocent catalyst for it all, will be left to navigate the emotional debris of their parents' catastrophic gamble. The ultimate irony is that in their desperate attempt to create a family that would finally unite everyone, they will succeed only in destroying the two-person family they already had, leaving everyone, in the end, completely and utterly alone. This isn't a brilliant move. It's not even a recipe for disaster. It is a disaster, already in progress, unfolding before our very eyes. Is this desperate attempt to manufacture an heir a final, brilliant play for love and acceptance? Or is it the most selfish, short-sighted, and destructive act imaginable? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to follow every development in this unfolding tragedy, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next.